I don't know, in the summer when I was working with Kim, and even before that with the Crime Prevention Task Committee and learning about homelessness and the issues in Langley, I've always wanted to do something like this, and we've always talked about an information session, and it's so amazing that it's finally happening and all of you guys are here. So thank you to all of you for coming and to listen, and I hope you enjoy my presentation. If I'm talking too fast or not loud enough, or I'm getting too nervous sounding, please let me know. This is my capstone project. Besides it just being a graduation requirement, it is also like a big passion of mine because I believe, and I'll talk about it more, everyone has a voice. And let's get started. So destigmatizing homelessness. First things first, today's presentation is on the traditional territories of the Matsqui, Kwantlen, Kitsi, and Semiahmoo First Nations. So it's always good to regard that. Second, a special thanks to Kimz Angels, who is my mentor. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
She does so much for the community every day. She's really such an amazing woman. Look at her Facebook. She's always posting things, and it wows me all the time. And she's a great inspiration. The Langley Advanced Times for writing that amazing article about this event, and I know some of you are here due to that article, so that's a really great thanks. The Red Velvet Cafe, who provided our coffee and some of our treats, and I don't think any of them are here today, but it was a really great donation of them. They are on Douglas Crescent, and it's a really, really great coffee shop. My dad goes there all the time, right? And then, obviously, my parents for supporting me through this, and I'll give them a round of applause. Their business is also on Douglas Crescent. So, the first definition we have here. The situation, homelessness, defined by the Canadian Observatory of Homelessness, is a situation of an individual without stable or safe housing. Most people do not choose to be homeless, and the experience is generally negative. And if you'd like to pay attention, if you read this longer definition, I just read a paraphrased version of it, it doesn't say that these people are criminals. It doesn't say these people are sick or rude or mean or dirty. It just says these people lack appropriate housing. Is that clear? Kind of clear thing. Next slide. We have some different areas of homelessness that helps us define it a little better, and the three broad terms are chronic homelessness, which is what we see every day on the streets, absolutely homeless. There's a transitional homeless, those who lack security or tenure of housing. And there's episodic, and those are the people who go in and out of homelessness and are often staying in overnight shelters. And another important thing to mention is at-risk homelessness, and those are people who are not homeless, but current economic situation does not meet public health or safety standards. And so that's a bit of education for you on how to define it. Then the next slide is the Langley's 2017 homeless numbers. And before I proceed, Kim, who I talked to yesterday, wanted to remind you that these are government numbers, but they're not totally accurate. The homeless population in Langley is greater than this, but not everyone is accounted for. But in 2017, does anyone want to guess how many homeless people we did have in Langley? 1,500, okay. Oh,
Could the custodian please come to the office?
I thought I was
You're being paged,
Any
Rebecca.
other guesses? 250? Any other? I know Dave knows the exact answer, I think, right? No? Okay, so the homeless population in 2017 was counted for 206, so whoever said 250 is very accurate. And does anyone, this is a shocking one, does anyone want to guess the increase from 2014 to 2017?
I already know.
Double?
80%.
80%? Yeah. Does anyone want to guess our rank? No one want to guess?
Is it per capita?
Yeah, per like 10,000.
3, I'd say that.
I'll say top 3.
Yeah, that's right. We are ranked third. Good job, Rebecca. Anyways, Anyway, so you may wonder, how is Langley ranked third? And with my Excel skills, I made this pie chart.
You.
And you can see Vancouver has the 59% of BC, Surrey has 17%, and next up is Langley. And you're kind of wondering, wow, that's a lot of people for a small town. And the rest of them are just about 1 to 2 to 4%, and that gives you a better visual. And another one is the increases. The only town that increased more than Langley from 2014 to 2017 was Delta, and that was 142. But other than that, Langley was on top there. Next slide. For Vancouver, does anyone want to guess now? Just adults in the room, your guys should be able to talk.
It's gotta be 1,000.
1,000? Anyone else? 2,000? There's 2,223
Close, Rebecca.
people counted in Vancouver. And
I
does
failed
anyone?
math,
Does anyone want to guess the difference between the unsheltered and sheltered population? And this was kind of impressive to me. 614 of them are unsheltered and 1,609 are sheltered. So more people, homeless people in Vancouver are sheltered. And this one, which kind of puts you, oh, Langley is not doing very well, the increase from 2014 in Vancouver. Anyways, was 19%. So Langley's increasing way higher than that. The next up we have a map. And so this one was a homeless population count per 10,000 in the whole Fraser Valley area. As we can see, Vancouver is mainly the high spot. A lot of people in Abbotsford, and again, we want to be aware these numbers are not totally accurate, and there's a bunch of different times. But Vancouver was a big hot spot, and then kind of Langley, Abbotsford, Mission area. And these areas are quite empty for homeless people per 10,000. But when we count the unsheltered people, it kind of swaps. You see in Vancouver, a lot of people are sheltered, West Van, North Van. Langley, Delta, a lot of people are unsheltered. A lot of people are sleeping on the streets in the cold. Like this morning I was driving to school and I saw that big, where is it, is it 208? That big puddle, not
Yeah.
puddle,
Yeah.
but swells. Lots of people live there, and that's their home. It's not very pleasant. Anyways, next up. What causes an increase? And I had the privilege of talking to Fraser Holland from Stepping Stone, and he told me that the cost of living causes an increase, and rentals rates skyrocketing.
Thanks for coming.
Single family homes going to condos causes an increase and losing that space. Challenges in other provinces, like in Alberta, people coming to BC and finding higher rent and then facing issues there. And another pretty visible one is that BC has a more mild climate than any other province in Canada, and so people obviously find their way here to have more comfortable homelessness in the fall and winter months. Anyways, oh, that was from Fraser. So why are people saying they're homeless? And this is again the surveys of the homeless population. They're saying that either rent is too high or their income is too low. And I can say that this is pretty true and pretty facty, because even today in our career class we were doing budgeting, and then one of my friends was like, I only have $40 left over per month. So obviously it's kind of easy to slip out of that go-no-go point. And even Kim was telling me yesterday, it's called the working poor, right? The people who
It
work
is.
but still can't afford it.
Yeah.
And so these are, again, some incomes and big social assistance numbers. It's about $9,000 a year for a single person, $14,000 a year for a person with a disability. Single parent and one child is about $20,000, and then for a couple it's about $27,000. Annual income for minimum wage in BC is $26,000 a year, and then the average household income for a Canadian family is about $71,000. So you can kind of see a gap. I'll let you take that the way you will. And so this is a quote for someone who has been experiencing homelessness in Langley. And they're saying that $375 shelter portion for rent is not enough. Not having housing that I hold is a huge barrier to finding employment. So what is housing first? Does anyone want to guess what it is? Kind of seems obvious to find. No, we're not feeling brave today? Okay.
I could say it, but it's everybody else you want the answers for.
Anyways, so housing first is what I think, and a lot of people who have done research, the best option to solving the homeless issue. And it recovers or is a recover-oriented approach that's centered on quickly moving people from experienced homelessness into permanent housing and then dealing with their problems from that. So it's taking people off the street right away and giving them a bed, a bathroom, somewhere to live, so they can deal with their problems from then on. And there's several BC housing projects in British Columbia, but if you look at the rates, there's about 49 homes, 52 homes, 46 homes, 58 homes. It's about 50 homes per facility, which doesn't really match up for the rates in British Columbia. So even if some people are being housed, there's still people who are living on the streets, as you can see in there. So it doesn't add up. It's a start, but it's not enough. And there's a bunch of quotes here. People saying how housing first is a great benefit. The Government of Canada, the Homeless Hub, Mental Health Commission of Canada, and this client has said, I can finally focus on my goals now that I have finally a stable home and have the luxury of free rent. I can focus all of my time on catching up and doing what I didn't have the chance to do when I was younger. I feel very fortunate that I have the second chance for that. So it gives you that opportunity, and it's a great thing. And some successful BC Housing First projects are in Medicine Hat, Alberta, where they eliminated completely their homeless population. Florida, who went down by 9%, and Europe. And I think we all know how Europe is always ahead of North America, fashion and the cars. And you see all these European countries have been doing housing first from as early as 2009, and it's working for them. And this is the Canadian article, Florida, and the Europe study has said that Europe Housing First is generally more effective than staircase services. It ends homelessness efficiently and making it cost effective. And by cost, I mean that each homeless person who's staying on the streets costs taxpayer money $120,000 a year. When you're housing them, it costs $18,000 a year. So your taxes will go to something other than homelessness. Maybe less potholes, I don't know. Driving a lot of those lately.
That's spot. That's a good one.
So that's about the end of my informational presentation.
I love her honesty.
And now I have this "It's Not What You Think" slide. And this is where the destigmatizing comes in, my key parts. And is there any questions before I start talking nonstop?
No, you're doing good.
No, I'm doing good? Okay, I'm gonna drink water. So, it's not what you think. And I know what's on your mind. Low-income housing? Not in my backyard. And you have so many reasons to shut it down. The value of my property will go down. The crime rates will skyrocket. It's not safe for my kids. And sure, you may be right, but the fact is these people are like you. They breathe the same air as you. They gaze at the same stars as you. They're human like you and me. I'm not as experienced as Kim is with spending time with the less fortunate population in our community, but of the times I have spent with them, I couldn't have had a better time. We shared stories and made a connection. At no time did I feel unsafe, afraid, or uncomfortable. I felt enlightened and that my perspectives were broadened when I learned about their struggle. And at this time here, I know my mom was there with me. Her father had just recently passed away, and we were giving out some leftover food from the service we had at our house. And we were talking to them. They were all very open-minded to hear my mom's story and how all that happened in her father's life. And one thing one lady did, this is kind of off topic, she gave my mom a plant.
Yeah.
She gave a plant, she had her cart, and she said, oh, this is for you, it's a cactus. And Mom, was that a pretty plant?
Yeah, it was the most beautiful cactus I ever had. It has,
and you know what? These people, they're great people. They see someone in pain and they give, even when they almost have nothing. Anyways, I never felt unsafe or afraid. And you may think, they're just drug addicted and all the money I will give them will go to drugs. But what you don't see is that these people may be using drugs to stay up through the night. They may have chronic pain and be prescribed an opioid to help with the pain and developed an addiction as a result. Okay, applause. I'm going to start here. They might have been prescribed an opioid and developed an addiction as a result. And I use the word addiction. The thing about an addiction that is often overlooked and definitely worth mentioning is typically people who are prone to addiction are alone and lack meaningful relationships or lack the skill to trust someone, which can be caused by a lack of secure attachment in early life. Even if you're surrounded by a sea of people, you can still feel alone and like no one understands you. We're human. If we're sad and lonely, drugs may seem like a favorable option. Why? Because the use of substance triggers the release of dopamine, a chemical that essentially gives you the feelings of pleasure and reward. Dopamine makes you want to pick up that second piece of pizza after you already have one. It gives you that feel-good feeling. It's why we eat when we're sad. A Canadian psychologist, Bruce Alexander, analyzed the results of studies where rats were placed in empty cages and given 2 water bottles to choose from, one with pure water and one with heroin-infused water. As time passed, the rats uniformly became addicted to heroin and inevitably overdosed on heroin. Those researchers concluded that extreme pleasure would eventually lead to addiction. Alexander noticed something that was a little bit different with that experiment, something wrong. The rats were placed in small cages, alone. Of course they're going to get addicted. What else did they have to do? So that psychologist then conducted his own study, making a rat park. He put 20 rats of both sexes into a large cave, gave them plenty of food, space to mate, toys, place to raise their litters, and he offered them 2 bottles of water, pure water and heroin-infused water. And guess what? The rats ignored the heroin. They didn't care about the special water. They already had all the things they needed already. They were more interested in social stimulation and connection than the heroin. That's the key point. The opposite of addiction is a connection. It isn't sobriety. You can't expect people to avoid an addiction if they have nothing to hold on to, nothing to stabilize them, nothing to make them feel safe, nothing to make them feel loved. You can't, having no roof on your head to sleep under night, that was not right, will not make it any easier to fight an addiction. Having no roof to sleep under at night will not make coping with mental illness any easier. Having no roof to sleep under at night will not make getting a job any easier. You can't invite someone over if you don't have a home. It's as simple as that. It's a picture of me and Kim and my mom. And this is another lady. Her name's Lida. And think about it. Tonight, you will leave this presentation and go home. You'll prepare yourself a meal for yourself, for your family. You'll sleep in a bed with a comfortable mattress, fluffy blankets, and fuzzy pillows. That was not right. You'll wake up the next morning, eat your breakfast, and go to whatever it is you do during the day, whether it's school or work. On the weekend, you'll visit your friends, see a show, go out to a restaurant. That's how you live. That's how I live. And that's okay. For these people, they have none of that. One man was telling me about his day, and he was telling me how he lived quite far away, and he was telling me how he needs to travel that distance every day if he wants to eat, and he's traveling it by bike. I believe he lives on 256. He said to me, if I choose not to eat, then I don't have to go all that way. It opened my eyes that this man was making a conscious decision daily whether or not to eat, because I don't need to make that decision. A lot of us don't. The same man I spoke to was a firefighter for 22 years and went to UBC to study physical education. Right now, I'm hoping for that UBC application to come in. This man went to that school that I'm dreaming to go to. He was kind, thoughtful, well-spoken, and he treated me with respect. Through wrongful dismissal and other additional unfortunate events, he's homeless and he's living without a voice. It can happen to anyone. We need to be their voice. And I'm not saying you need to give change to every beggar you see on the streets, although it would be nice. But I do want you to regard the person as an equal to you, as a friend. I want you to remember that every person has a story, and every story is different. These people do not enjoy this life. They don't choose this life. It's not pleasant. Don't look past and keep walking. Try to give a smile. Remember that these people are human, like you and like me. If you keep those simple things in mind, together we can work towards taking away the stigma and uniting our community. Thank you. Day, Mayor Val Vanderbroek, Rebecca Darnell, Gail, and Dan Selvage. I think that's it.
Gail Martin.
Gail Martin.
And
Councilor Gail Martin.
People that came from our
And
community.
people who came from the community who read the paper, Phyllis Hefner who came, and everyone who came in. It's a really big thing. All the staff who's come out to support, friends. This has been a really big thing. I hope I've destigmatized you guys a little bit. And Kim. I don't know if you have any other questions or comments.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a suggestion, in terms of what can we do as individuals in the community to promote a better and deeper understanding of the homeless community. What would you suggest that we do as individuals?
Well, just be kind.
Be kind?
I
Sorry.
would say work together.
And
That
work
is one
together.
big thing, is if we all work together, we can make a difference. 'Cause, you know, everybody's in different positions. Things that you can do, we might not be able to do, or things we're able to do, you might not be able to do. So if we all, as kids, the city, the township, everybody, teachers, all that, if we all got together and work together, we can really make a difference. And what Lida's doing here, you kids are our future. So we're doing what we're doing, but you guys need to step up and do what Lida's doing. And we are very proud of you, sweetie, and we will make a difference.
Yeah, to that, I think if you have a friend who seems a little bit more cold on the aspect, just tell them what you know. Let's say it's not what you think.
Are you going to have this available on the internet somewhere?
Sure.
On the Kimz website?
It's gonna be on YouTube.
I will be on YouTube, Rebecca. I'm going to put it on YouTube. Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
put it on Kimz Angel's website, and she'll be speaking at the Kimz Angel's Gala
Oh,
too.
I will?
Oh,
Thank you. Oh,
We're
yeah.
gonna get your plate now.
Kim, when is the gala?
It's May 29th.
May 29th. I saw a question over here.
Yeah, put it in your calendar now.
A TED Talk. Like an actual
Yes.
TED Talk? Remind me of one? Yeah. Do you know how to get into those?
We'll get you.
We'll do it. Yeah.
Anyways, if you have any leftover snacks, I know I said 3 to 5, but I obviously went under that. I just wanted to make sure I had the time. Thank you for the leadership class, and Miss B for coming, for the career teachers, the principals, Miss Roslyn, Judy, am I missing anyone? Miss Volk, Miss Robertson. Thank you all for coming, and this has been a really big thing, really important thing to me. And these people do matter. They're people. We're all people. And I think that's it. That's all. Thank you so much for coming.